Lily sat at a small corner table in the cozy cafe, swinging her feet as she sipped her hot chocolate. Her mother sat across from her, scrolling through her phone, but Lily's attention was drawn to the counter. A tall man in a worn military uniform stood there, checking his pockets as if searching for money. His shoulders slumped slightly, and his face carried the tiredness of someone who had seen too much. Lily's heart tugged at the sight. She turned to her mother and tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy, can I buy his coffee?" she asked in a soft voice. Her mother glanced up, following her gaze to the soldier, then back at her daughter. There was warmth in her mother's eyes as she nodded. "Of course, sweetheart." Excited, Lily hopped down from her chair and ran up to the counter. She stood on her tiptoes to reach the counter and placed a few crumpled bills on the smooth wooden surface. "I want to buy his coffee," she said cheerfully. The barista, surprised but smiling, looked at the soldier. "Looks like your coffee's on her today." The soldier turned in surprise and looked down at the little girl standing beside him. His tired eyes softened as he crouched down to her level. "That's very kind of you," he said with a warm smile. Lily beamed. "My daddy was a soldier too," she said proudly. The soldier's expression changed, a flicker of emotion crossing his face. He nodded, placing a gentle hand over his heart. "Then your dad must have been a great man." Lily nodded enthusiastically. "He was the best." The soldier took his coffee, still looking at Lily as if he wanted to say something more. Instead, he simply smiled and gave her a small salute. "Thank you," he said sincerely. As he walked away, Lily returned to her seat, feeling a warmth in her chest. She didn't know that this small act of kindness would change both of their lives forever. The next morning, the cafe was just as warm and inviting as always. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, and the soft hum of conversation surrounded Lily as she sat at the same table with her mother. She was stirring her hot chocolate, watching the steam rise, when the bell above the cafe door chimed. She glanced up and her eyes widened in surprise. The same soldier from the day before had walked in, but this time he wasn't alone. In his hands, he carried a neatly wrapped package with a small ribbon tied around it and a folded note resting on top. His steps were steady, purposeful, as he made his way toward Lily's table. Conversations in the cafe quieted slightly, and a few customers turned to watch. Something about his presence carried a quiet intensity, as if he had come with something important to say. Lily looked up at him with wide, curious eyes as he stopped right in front of her. Her mother straightened in her chair, sensing that this moment held more meaning than just a simple thank you. "I wanted to come back," the soldier said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Yesterday, you did something kind for me, and I wanted to do something for you in return." Lily's small hands reached out hesitantly as the soldier extended the package toward her. She glanced up at her mother, who gave her a reassuring nod, then carefully took the wrapped gift. Her fingers traced the edges of the ribbon, curiosity flickering in her bright eyes. The soldier crouched down to her level, his eyes holding a depth of emotion that went beyond words. "There's something inside that I want you to have," he said gently. "Something that means a lot to me." Lily's heartbeat quickened. The entire cafe seemed to pause, waiting, as she slowly began to untie the ribbon. Lily carefully pulled at the ribbon, her small fingers trembling slightly with anticipation. The cafe was unusually quiet now, the soft clinking of cups and quiet murmurs fading into the background as everyone watched the moment unfold. She lifted the lid of the box and gently peeled back the delicate tissue paper inside. Her breath caught in her throat. Nestled within the wrapping was a beautifully framed military medal, its polished surface gleaming under the soft cafe lights. Next to it lay a neatly folded American flag, its deep red, white and blue contrasting against the crisp white paper. Lily's eyes widened in astonishment, her gaze flickering between the medal, the flag, and the soldier kneeling beside her. She looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is this yours?" The soldier shook his head, his expression tender yet heavy with emotion. "No," he said softly. "It belonged to my brother. He was a soldier, just like your dad." Lily's fingers brushed over the medal's smooth surface, feeling the weight of something far more than metal. It was history, sacrifice, and love all in one. She swallowed hard, sensing the depth of what she had just been given. "Why are you giving it to me?" she asked, her voice tinged with awe. The soldier exhaled slowly, as if gathering his words carefully. "Because what you did for me yesterday, it reminded me of the kind of kindness my brother always believed in. He used to say that the smallest acts of goodness could change the world." He smiled, though there was a glimmer of sadness in his eyes. "I think he would have wanted someone like you to have this." Lily held the frame closer to her chest, her young mind trying to comprehend the significance of the gift. Her mother, watching from across the table, wiped away a tear, her heart swelling with both gratitude and sorrow. Lily finally found her voice again, steady and sure. "I'll take good care of it," she promised. "Always." The soldier nodded, his jaw tightening as if holding back his own emotions. "I know you will." Around them, the quiet cafe seemed to hum with unspoken understanding. This wasn't just a simple thank you gift, it was a moment of connection, a bond between strangers forged through kindness, sacrifice, and the memory of those they had lost. Lily held the framed medal and folded flag close to her chest, feeling the weight of something far greater than herself. The soldier watched her with a quiet intensity, his eyes reflecting the depth of emotion he couldn't quite put into words. The cafe remained still, as if the entire room understood that this moment was something rare, something sacred. Her mother reached over and gently placed a hand on her shoulder, her own eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "This means so much more than you know." The soldier nodded, glancing between the woman and her daughter. "No," he said softly. "Thank you. That small act of kindness yesterday, it meant more to me than I can explain. People don't always notice us, soldiers, veterans, but she did." He looked at Lily again, a smile breaking through the seriousness of his face. "She reminded me that kindness still exists in the world." Lily's fingers curled tightly around the edges of the frame, her heart swelling with pride. She didn't know much about war, sacrifice, or the struggles of soldiers, but she did know that making someone smile, making someone feel seen, was important. Without another word, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around the soldier in a tight hug. He stiffened for a brief moment, then slowly, gently, returned the embrace. It wasn't just a hug, it was a thank you, a promise, a silent understanding that neither of them would forget this day. When she pulled back, she looked up at him with a bright, unwavering gaze. "You're my friend now," she said matter-of-factly, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. The soldier chuckled, nodding. "I'd be honored." As he stood up, adjusting his uniform, he gave her one last look before saluting her. She grinned and clumsily mimicked the gesture, making the cafe chuckle softly. As he walked toward the door, the cafe seemed to come back to life, the quiet hum of conversation returning, the clinking of mugs and spoons filling the air again. But something had changed. Lily could feel it. She looked down at the framed medal and flag in her hands, then back at the door where the soldier had just exited. A warm feeling settled deep inside her chest. Sometimes she realized the smallest things, a cup of coffee, a kind word, a simple hug, could mean the world to someone, and that was something she would never forget.